Today I'm going to show you how to paint the small study of a woman wearing a gold earring. There are 3 parts to this lesson. Each part should take about 15 minutes to complete. If you'd like to follow along, you can download a free sketch of this image through the link in the description below. So let's get straight into part 1 of our lesson. Our palette for today is titanium white, light yellow, yellow ochre, cadmium orange, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, raw umber, and ultramarine blue. We begin by toning the surface of our support with raw umber, which has been thinned down with a little medium. This will help us judge colours and values later on. Next we need to sketch out the head. We'll use a flat brush dipped in some raw umber to roughly map out the main features of her face. You can sketch freehand and make small adjustments as you go along, like I'm doing here, or you can save some time and spoons by tracing the head directly onto the surface. I've included a link to a copy of this sketch in the description box below. This black and white image of our portrait shows us the light, middle and dark areas more clearly. When we're mixing the colors for our portrait, we need to make sure that we include all of these values to add depth and make it look more realistic. Because we used raw umber to tone the surface, we already have a middle value for her skin. So we can go straight into painting the darkest tones or values. To paint the dark areas, we need to mix up some raw umber with cadmium orange and a touch of white. We don't need a lot of white, you only need a tiny amount, but probably about this much. Now we're going to relax and listen to some quiet music while we apply our dark mix. We're going to apply the mix to her lower cheek, the area in between her lips, the crease of her neck, and the shadows of her ears. top of her cheek, her temple, and her ear are a bit lighter in value, so we need to add a little more white to our mix to create a more accurate tone for these areas. This color will be nearer in value to the raw umber tone of the surface that we started with, but the addition of the cadmium orange and the white will give it a richer appearance. Her hair color is the darkest value, but we want to avoid using black straight from the tube, as that can look quite dull. We will mix some ultramarine blue into our raw umber mix to create a rich, deep color that looks black instead. Our last little job for this session is to paint her hair. You'll notice that I've also added a lighter value to the top of her head where the light hits her hair. I just added some more white and a touch of yellow ochre to the dark hair mix, and then once I'd added the darker part of the hair, I blend the two parts together. Well done. It's looking lovely. And that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson. Now it's time for us to find a comfy chair to sit back and take a moment to admire our progress so far. Once you feel nice and refreshed, you can watch the next video for part 2 of our lesson. If you have any questions, please write them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. And hit subscribe so you don't miss the next part of this free lesson. I'll see you soon.